Let's go over how a publishing industry works, how to get published, and all of that. So this is going to be pretty fast and fairly comprehensive. There's a lot to go over here. So first off, let's talk about what does it mean to be published. A lot of people will ask me, how do I publish my book? Or can I publish my book with BookDaddy? And it's a bit of a generic question. So I want to answer the question, what is publishing? It just means two things. One, do you have an ISBN number, which essentially means, are you officially in the database of the Library of Congress? Every single book that is written is in the Library of Congress, and it has a number, just like your Social Security number is attached to your book. You're going to need a separate ISBN number for every type of book. So if you have a paperback, or you have a physical book, or you have an ebook that's a PDF, or you have an ebook that's an EPUB, we'll get into that a little bit later, or if you have an audiobook, all of those are separate ISBN numbers. So you're essentially copyrighting your book. There's ways, if you want, you can technically copyright your book in a legal way, but for 99% of you, an ISBN number is fine. They're not that expensive, especially if you buy them 5 or 10 at a time. So don't worry about that. If you have your book in the Library of Congress, you now own it legally, it's protected. So now you need to sell it. If you can sell your book somewhere, anywhere, you are now published. A lot of people think that what publishing means is that they can see their book in Barnes & Noble or Powell's in Portland, Oregon, or City Lights in San Francisco. And they think that unless they're in one of these famous bookstores, they're not published. That's not true. Even if you're not on Amazon, if you have an ISBN number and someone can buy your book, even if it's a friend Venmoing you money or PayPaling you money, and someone buys your book, then you're technically published. So that's step one. Then the next question is, what format are you going to publish in? So think about this like a business. Let's say you're opening up a cafe. You're going to sell coffee, but are you going to sell it in the form of beans? Are you going to sell it in the form of drip coffee? Are you going to sell it in the form of a latte? Are you going to have a t-shirt with the logo of your company where people are into your specific coffee? There's different ways of distributing or making money or productizing your intellectual property, your book. You can do it in the form of an ebook, and there's a particular style that's called an EPUB, which all that means is that it will modify its typesetting depending upon the format. It's not stuck. So if it's uploaded to a Kindle, or it's uploaded to a Nook, or if someone's reading it on their computer, or they're reading it in Apple Books, or they're reading it in Google Books, and they have different size computers or different size iPads or different size Kindles, the EPUB format will translate the book so that it's readable in all these formats. So this is called an EPUB format. Then there's something called a trade PDF. A trade PDF is something that you can send to reviewers, send to agents, send to newspapers, send to people that are going to maybe have you on the podcast. And you can also sell this on your website. So this is just a normal PDF, but it's not going to format differently depending on how they're viewing it. Then there's print paperback, and then there's print hardcover. The formatting is slightly different, and you need different ISBN numbers for both. That's why I have them separate. Print paperback costs less to print, and therefore the final product will be cheaper. A print hardcover is more expensive to print, and therefore people need to buy it for a higher price. Generally speaking, industry standards 5x8 for nonfiction and 6x9 for fiction. And then you have audiobooks. You haven't even gotten into distribution. But step one is, am I published? Yep. Step two, what are the different formats? Then for the different formats, let's talk about getting ready for publishing. There's about 7 steps here. So first, you need to worry about the design. Let's assume you have a manuscript. You need to have a separate design for your general cover for your PDF. Then you need a separate design for your print cover. And remember, you'll need 2 versions depending on the size. Then you need an EPUB version, and then a 1x1 square for audiobooks. So we're not going to go over super detail of how to do that, but you can definitely use lots of different formatting tools, and you can hire someone on Fiverr. You can get 90% of the way there with BookDaddy using the cover creator, but these are things that you're going to want to create. Then you're going to want to have different types of formatting or typesetting. So this is how the book is formatted. You might have a Google document, maybe you have a Word document, and then you have to typeset in a very particular way so that it prints well and it reads well. So print PDF is the easiest. Essentially, whatever you have on Google Docs, make it look clean, make it look pretty. You can download it as a PDF and you're ready to go. EPUB format, dynamic based on size. You're going to want to use particular softwares that help you do that. We are in BookDaddy, as has been the case since our inception, working on a software that will help you, an app that will help you do this. Just give us some time. There's lots of stuff to do. As you can see, we're adding an app almost every day on average, 3 to 5 per week at least. This is a priority for us. The audiobook app is a priority for us, but just stick with us. For now, I'll give you a couple alternatives. You can technically do it yourself in page settings, but it's a little bit difficult. I generally recommend using a software to do it. You're also going to need a blurb. A blurb is essentially what's on the back of the book, a little bit of a pitch. A lot of our apps include a description, a blurb automatically. So the idea generator, the story generator, all of the wizards, the world builder wizards, the outline wizards, all of them will give you this automatically. But you can also use any of the ghostwriters if you wanted to adapt them. I don't have time to go over all of them right now. That's not the point of this call, but just know that a lot of the apps will give you a blurb automatically. Obviously, you need your ISBN. We talked about that first. Then you're going to want to have some metadata, keywords, and then category of the book. We're actually going to do a separate call just on categories of the book. If you do this correctly, if you do your keywords and your categories correctly, you can actually become an Amazon bestseller. I wouldn't say easily, but if you do it correctly, it's a lot easier. What this means is that if you are in a category that has very high demand, the very low supply, and you position yourself in a subcategory of a subcategory using the right keywords, it's pretty easy, at least for one day, become an Amazon bestseller. We're going to talk about that in a separate class, but I just wanted to make that you cannot skip this. I mean, you technically can't skip this, but you really don't want to skip this. Then you want to know essentially pricing. So you're going to want to establish pricing for paperback, for physical books, for ebook. For each platform, it's going to be a little bit different, and that gets complicated depending on how you're publishing, if you're publishing directly. So we're going to continue on, but this is what you need to get prepared. So just to go back here, am I published? If you have an ISBN number and you can sell it somewhere, even if it's a PDF, yes, you're technically published. You're going to have these formats. Obviously, the trade PDF is the easiest one, and just attach it to your website. That's the easiest one. But all of these other ones are very important for mass distribution. Then these are the things that you're going to want to get. Your design for your covers in the different formats. You're going to want to format the book in different formats. You want your blurb, your ISBN number, your metadata, your category of the book, and then your prices. So now you're pretty well established. And now we're going to go through different ways to publish. First ebooks, then physical books, and then audiobooks. Jack asks, who do we buy an ISBN number from? We're also working on an app that you'll be able to buy an ISBN number from us, but there are some complications that just bureaucratic stuff with the government that we need to do before we can do that, but we're working on it. And in the PDF, there's going to be a link to our suggested ISBN number provider. So just remember, go here, and then you'll download the PDF. And you'll have all the links that you need. We'll link to everyone that we need. He asks, is it possible to translate the book into multiple languages? Yeah, this is another feature that this is a wild feature, honestly, that the team brought out that I haven't even talked about too much. But if you guys go down here, you guys can see where my cursor is. These are the languages that we have right now. So if you change your core language to one of these languages, you'll see the default language will start to be in a different language. So let's start with ebooks. Back to the original question about distribution. At the end of the day, you want to be where people already are. But by doing that, you have to give up some money to the platform. So if you want to be in Barnes & Noble, then obviously you're not going to get all the profits. If you want to be on Kindle, you're not necessarily going to get all the profits. If you could sell 100,000 copies of your ebook from your website, great, go ahead. If you can run ads to a funnel and you own everything, then obviously your margins are going to be higher, but then you're going to be responsible for getting the attention. So imagine your company wasn't on Google or wasn't optimized for Google. If people are searching for cafe near me in a particular town and you're not on Google, then people are not going to find you. And where people are searching for coffee near me in my town is on Google. Generally. Nowadays, we are moving slowly but surely into the age of ChatGPT automation. So there used to be this thing called SEO, search engine optimization. It's still obviously very important, but now people are even searching on ChatGPT. But the idea is, where are people searching? Oh, people are searching on ChatGPT. Well, I need to be on ChatGPT. If people are searching on Google Maps, I need to be on Google Maps. If people are searching on Google, I need to be on Google. The same thing for you as an author. If people are searching for books on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble Nook, in Apple Books, in Kobo bookstore, that's one of the alternatives. Scribd is a big company, then you need to be there. So the answer to which one should I be on, the answer is all of them, because you are using the traffic and the attention that already exists on their platform. And there's a bit of a filter. So I know I've talked about this in a few lessons, but whenever someone's going to buy something, one of their objections is can I trust this company? Can I trust this product? Can I trust this salesperson? Can I trust this website? And if they can't, they don't trust the website or the product, then they're not going to buy. This will create unnecessary objections in their mind. Whereas if you are on Amazon, or you're on Barnes & Noble, or if you're on Apple Bookstore, they themselves have filters so that they don't have that crazy of a filter. Honestly, it's pretty easy, especially on Amazon Kindle, to upload almost anything, but there at least are a few hoops that you have to jump through in order to be on any of these platforms. And so because there's hoops to jump through, you necessarily have trust and authority by being on these platforms. That was a little side tangent on the psychology of sales, but it is important. So the reason why you want to be on all these platforms is, one, because people are searching there, but two, people are more likely to buy than on your random website because there's trust built in. Does everyone understand this idea? In the chat, do you want to let me know? So Mike asked if you have different languages. Yes. Yeah. You should get an ISBN for every different format. So even if you, let's say, do an update on your book, let's say you do a 2.0, a lot of authors do that, especially really successful books from, let's say, the 80s and the 90s, like the E-Myth, or that's a famous one that just came out with the 2.0. They have a new ISBN for that book. Sophie asks, and what if you want to just translate the entire book into many different languages, but you don't write in them? Yeah, absolutely. I would just say, Sophie, you might want to hire someone to take a quick look at it to make sure that it makes sense. Our writers, I believe, are very good, but to be perfectly frank, it's difficult for me to know if Mandarin or Turkish or Japanese is good because I can't tell. So if I were to translate one of my books, let's say, into Japanese, I would probably hire someone on Fiverr or ask around someone that I know, even just to look at the first chapter and say, hey, does this make sense, or are there errors? So you always want to just double check. It's a new technology, so it's going to do its best, and nothing else is going to get you 95% of the way there, where you can hire an editor and maybe it only takes them 5 or 10 hours to get it up to standards in Japanese. Whereas if you wanted them to do a translation word for word from scratch, it might take them 50 or 100 hours. And so you're looking at a lot more expensive. But yeah, the answer is every single version needs to have a different ISBN number, and that includes languages. So let me just go through a little bit of these. Obviously, you guys all know Kindle, I assume. A lot of you guys know Nook. It's just the main competitor of Kindle. Apple Books is, just to be clear, this is about 80% of the market in Kindle. And then Barnes & Noble is another 10% of the market. And then all of the rest of them combined are 10%. So if you're going to focus on anything, Kindle and Barnes & Noble are the most important. But it's good to be on Apple. If you're in really specific subgenres, a lot of people will find them on Kobo as well. And then Scribd is, it really originally was for PDFs and like public, and you can't technically publish directly. You have to use a distributor on Scribd, but it's not that important, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Each one of these has its own system for distributing. So you have to go into Amazon to publish it on Amazon. You have to go into Barnes & Noble to publish it on Barnes & Noble. You have to go into Apple Books to publish it. They all will require you to do the entire process in their way. There are a few distributors that will do it for you, but obviously they're going to take a fee. And they have different fee structures where either they will reduce the price up front, but they're going to take a percentage of every sale, or they charge a lot more up front for less of a percentage. It's up to you. Depending on if you're thinking long-term and you think you're going to sell a lot long-term, then it's better to pay more upfront. If you don't think that you're going to sell that many, but you just are using it for authority building or to go through the motions and to just have something available so that you can write the second one, then it might make sense, especially if you're price sensitive, to have a percentage. Drafts Digital is probably industry standard. They'll push to everywhere. Smashwords will also distribute to everywhere. So essentially you can upload it just to one of these two. I really recommend Drafts Digital. Again, we're building a competitor to all of these. So soon you won't need Drafts Digital. You'll just be able to use BookDaddy. We're working on it, but these are massive companies just themselves. And just full transparency, the development of this kind of app is fairly complex. So we're working on it, but we're working on a lot of apps, as you can tell. So just bear with us. For now, I recommend Drafts to Digital. You don't have to do it. Everything is time or money, right? It's either time or money. So if you say, hey, I have more money than time, then you can just use Drafts to Digital, and they'll help you upload to all of these in one shot. But if you don't want to pay their fee, then you can pay with time and you can do it manually. Publish Drive is another option. Just if you're Googling around, you may find Publish Drive. I do not recommend them. I don't think that they're a very good option, even though they technically do the same thing because they charge a monthly fee. So even if you're not selling any books, you have to pay them every month. Let's go over to physical books. So for physical books, here's essentially your main options. So you have Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. Kindle Direct Publishing means, do you guys know what print on demand means? Print on demand, POD. You'll see this a lot, print on demand. For those of you who don't know what it means, essentially what that means is you don't need to buy large inventory. So what you used to need to do is you used to have to buy, let's say, 100 copies of your book, 200 copies of your book. If you want it to not be really expensive, 1,000 copies of your book, and then you get them all shipped to your door, and then you distribute them and ship them whenever someone buys. So you're taking all the risk, a lot of money up front. Whereas print on demand, what that means is that they do not even print the book until someone buys it. Fancy machines that will print your book as soon as someone buys it. The order comes in, money comes in, so someone buys, then the money goes to the print on demand service. There's lots of different ones. I'm going to talk about them right now, but they actually collect the money right away. Someone buys and the money goes to the print on demand, then they print and then they ship, and then you get a distribution. This is a basic income statement of a company. You have cost of goods sold, you have shipping, and you probably had marketing as well, but they're not going to pay for your marketing. So that's your job to make sure that people actually buy. But remember, if you're on Amazon or you're on Barnes & Noble, then people will buy just by searching. So this cut is obviously going to be much smaller because they're printing one each individual time and shipping each individual time. Whereas if you bought in bulk, then obviously the prices are a lot lower. So your percentage is going to be lower, but your risk as a business owner is also much lower, which is a fundamental nature of business, risk reward. So if you're risking less, then your reward is going to be less. Does everyone understand this idea? So these are the ways to have print on demand. By the way, we're not talking about the big 5 publishers, Penguin and HarperCollins and Hachette and all the big ones. That's a totally different universe. We're not going to talk about that. You have to get an agent, you have to send query letters, you have to know someone, you have to go through a bunch of hoops, and it usually takes about 2 years to get published. So if you want to go the traditional publishing route, this is not the class. But also know that this is secretly the class, because just like the music industry, the publishing industry are not taking very many risks nowadays. So what they do is they look at all of the best-selling indie published authors or self-published authors, and they just look at the numbers, and whoever's selling the best, they offer them a deal because they say, oh, well, look, you already sold a bunch. Can I please take some of your money? That's essentially what they do. And they'll either try to buy the rights to scale it, or they'll try to buy the rights for a movie or for foreign distribution, or they'll then try to buy your next book. But because they know you were successful with the first one or the second one or the third one, it's lower risk for them. So then they'll offer you some money. So the easiest way, ironically, nowadays to get published at one of the big publishers is to self-publish and be really successful. Does that make sense? This is their formula nowadays. So unless you're in the good old boys club, you really have to start here. And same thing is with the music industry. The big labels are just, oh, what are the biggest artists that are on TikTok? What songs are going viral on Instagram? Let me sign these artists. That's what they're doing. Rod Wilson, a friend of mine, is a Simon & Schuster publisher. Yeah, I met with a lot of the big publishers as well. So I'm not against big publishers. It's just their model is becoming outdated every day. Why would anyone want to do that, Mike? Publish with the big publishers? A lot of it is psychological, honestly. People optimize for different things. One of the variables that we optimize for in life is money. But a lot of times people will optimize for status or authority. And so if you're not trying to make money on every individual book sold, being with one of the bigger publishers checks off other boxes. And who's to say those boxes are not important? Because if you are published with Penguin or Simon & Schuster. There's ways to monetize that, especially if you're a business person. You can monetize it easier for theory, for back-end services or speaking gigs. And they also have really good relationships with Hollywood. So a lot of authors that are really good at this, they may have a really successful book here, but they might not know how to successfully pitch it to television or movies or foreign rights or that sort of thing. So they add some little add-ons, but every month they're becoming less and less important, that's for sure. Physical books. Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, they have their own, it's literally a warehouse of machines. You got to think about it physically. It's literally a warehouse of machines. There's an order that comes in, it prints your cover, it prints the book, the machine combines it, and then it prints it, and then it sends it. So Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing is Amazon's version of this. Barnes & Noble Press, same thing. You can have your book on Barnes & Noble website, and people can buy the physical copy. They can buy a hardcover or a paperback on all of these. You just have to go through the hoops. They take a small percentage, obviously, but it's worth it to, in my opinion, to have your book able to be printed. You can obviously do this on your own website as well. So you can say, oh, buy my physical book, and you could have 1,000 of them in your garage and ship them yourself with FedEx. That's fine. But a lot of people use one of these too, Lulu Press or Ingram's Press. And what they do is they're essentially a plugin for most website builders. So for example, Shopify or WooCommerce or BigCommerce or ClickFunnels or Go High Level. You can plug these in to your website, and we're building a funnel builder that's going to be pretty advanced, so you guys won't need any of those. But anyways, that's coming as well. But Lulu Press and Ingram's, they're both good. They're both fine. And what that does is it allows you to print on demand from your own website. The main difference is that Ingram's, they'll do distribution on these platforms as well. So it's kind of double dipping with Ingram's. They're a good one. Either one is going to be fine, but they're sort of irrelevant unless you have your own website. The physical book. So we've gone over ebook. We've gone over physical book to an extent. And remember, I'm going to have all the links available for everything that we recommend. So let's talk about audiobooks. If you guys are still with me, this is a really technical course. Sometimes these lessons are exciting and we're talking about setting and world building and plots and characters. But this one is legitimately pretty detailed. So if you guys are still with us, then that means you're serious. Because sometimes it's not as fun, but it's in those nitty-gritty details is when you separate. So that's actually one thing I talk about all the time. Every single time there's something that's difficult that happens in your life or as an author, you don't want to think about it as a problem. You want to think about it as an opportunity to separate yourself from people that would otherwise quit. So the fact that this is technical and the fact that this is mildly annoying to go through all of these steps and make all of these decisions is at the end of the day a competitive advantage, because every time someone quits and they don't continue, then there's fewer books, and then you're the one that it's actually for sale. Now, we're sort of trying to disrupt this idea and make it a lot easier for everyone, but we've only been around for 2.5 months or so far, so we're going step by step. So let's go talk about audiobooks. The biggest thing in the audiobook industry is that Audible essentially owns the market. There's a couple other platforms, but most of them do not allow for AI voiceovers. So the reason why less than 1% of books have an audiobook is this: the recording costs. I don't know if any of you guys have shopped around, but you have to essentially have a professional audio recording in order to publish to any of these platforms. These are sort of industry standards. If you have a beginner, they're going to charge $10 to $25 per 100 words or $150 per hour, finished hour. A lot of people will either do it per word or they'll do it per finished hour. And a finished hour just means that they're going to do the audio engineering after the first recording to make it sound really good, like a radio. And Audible in particular is very, very picky about the audio quality. So you can't skip the audio engineering step. You can't just record something on your phone or record something with a normal mic and upload it to Audible. They won't accept it. So they're very picky about the quality. So you have to do the actual first recording, which should be really good. And then 2, you have to clean up the audio engineering, which are both cost a lot. So when I say finished hour, most voiceover artists now will do the second part, the audio engineering included, but they charge per finished hour. So most audiobooks are 8 to 12 hours long. And so this is where if you have a beginner, it's going to cost $2,000 to $4,000, intermediate, $3,000 to $5,000, really seasoned person that's done a lot, $4,000 to $6,000, which is pretty expensive. And then if you want to go with a total pro, someone that you're going to recognize their voice, usually it's going to be minimum $10,000. There are on occasions you might find some people that will do a royalty share where you don't pay as much up front, but it's very rare. Your previous book have to have sold a lot. for them to take a deal like this. That makes sense? So there's hybrid fees, structures, and royalty sharing, but it's very rare. It will be considered beginner and intermediate. This is not for you. This is for the quality of the output. So this means, let's say, for example, if you are a fantasy book, how many different characters with different voices? So if you have, let's say, a child, or you have a teenager that's an elf, or you have an alien that's speaking a different language, or you have a wise old sage, are they going to speak in different voices? And if they are speaking in different voices and they're very good, the ability to do that would be seasoned or advanced. Whereas if someone, do you guys know LibriVox recordings? LibriVox recordings are essentially public domain books that are read by normal people. It's charity, and most of them are very bad. If you listen to a LibriVox recording, you can feel the difference between a beginner and an advanced. Download Harry Potter. That person is really skilled. It's the same thing, some random TV show versus Leonardo DiCaprio or Kate Blanchett. Kate Blanchett is going to cost a lot more money than the random teenager in the new Netflix show. Does that make sense? It's actually skill. And so they'll usually give you recordings of their past work, and they'll show you how good they are. It's a bit subjective, but just like with anything in life, there are levels. And if they're better, they're going to cost a lot more. Randy says, I always wondered how they remembered which voice goes with what character over an extended series. Yeah, that's the reason. If someone can do that, and they can do 10 to 15 to 20 different voices and have a narrator and do the audio engineering, they're going to cost a lot of money. If you want to do this yourself, you can rent a studio, which is going to be $30 to $200 an hour. So that's going to be another $2,000 to $3,000. And then your post-production audio engineer is going to be $2,000 to $4,000. So if you want to do this on your own, you can't do this with your voice note app on your iPhone. You can't do it. So it's going to cost a lot of money, even if you do it in your own voice. Abraham has a good point. Why not AI voiceovers? Because they're new, to be honest. The publishing industry is an older industry. It's very slow to change. And since Audible also owns one of the largest platforms for voiceover artists, they get a percentage for every voiceover artist. So they are slow to change. They're not a startup anymore. They're a big, massive, one of the biggest companies in the world. And so are they going to eventually allow for AI voiceovers? Maybe, but for whatever reason, they don't allow them right now. We are working on an app. I think I've told you a lot of this before, called Kafka, and it is going to be so a voiceover audiobook app. We're working on that as well. And so let's just say soon, but it's a very high priority for us. We're going to allow you to create an AI voiceover audiobook. And then we're also going to have a competitor of Audible where you can upload. So Book Daddy is coming to the rescue for all of you. And we're going to allow, obviously, AI voiceovers because that's what we believe in. So no, it's not permitted. No, it's not permitted on Audible. If you guys are thinking 11 Labs or one of these, if you use it, you can't upload it to Audible. You can't upload it to audiobooks.com. You can't. There's actually a lot more detail here in this where it even has screenshots of how to upload to Kindle. And we don't really have time for all of these details. Read this ebook here. This is going to be very detailed. And then there's a whole thing on essentially why Kafka is going to be a really cool option for you guys. But we're reaching the end. I'd rather answer a couple questions here at the end. But the nitty-gritty details of how to actually upload it to Audible, how to upload it to Kindle is going to be a separate class. So if you buy Kindle Direct and you click a button, there's plugins for your computer where you can click a button and it will read you the website that you're on. So that's what it is, but it's not an actual audiobook. It's not a different ISBN number. It's more of a feature to help people that are blind or are not maybe fully blind, but you can't see very well, or they want to listen to it while they're reading it, but it's not in the format of an audiobook and it doesn't distribute it to the audiobook platforms. I do understand what you're saying, but it's not exactly the same thing. What format is required to upload to KDP? So essentially you're going to upload a PDF and also an EPUB file. But Michael asked, but you need both. For the ISBNs, do I have a suggestion for the software to use? Yeah, typesetting is definitely annoying. I'm not going to lie. I would recommend Reedsy. You guys know Reedsy? Reedsy. For now, use Reedsy. And we're building one. I promise we're coming to the rescue, but use Reedsy for now.